Art 101 with me, Mike Berger. I want to take a little bit of time today to talk about a great artist, one of the guys whose name is really synonymous with art. You can't really think about art with kicking through his name. Uh, the 17th century master Rembrandt van Rijn. He was born on this day, July 15th, in 1606. He was and still is recognized as a great teacher, draftsman, etcher, painter, and overall artist of the 17th century. His family was very middle class. His father was a miller and, again, made a very modest income, made a very modest living for his family, but again, they got by, and it was very middle class. Eventually, when it came time for him to go on to school, he ended up deciding to become study philosophy and literature and that sort of thing, but quickly decided to change his direction. After about 3 years of study, he decided that he was going to go in and work underneath the famous historical painter Peter Lassmann, who you can trace his teaching back and back and back through teachers all the way back to Matthias Grunewald, one of Germany's greatest artists. After several years of study, at the age of 22, he decides to go on his own and start taking on his own students as a master artist. One of my absolute favorite paintings of his early years was one called The Artist in His Studio, where you see this snapshot of sorts. Again, it's pre-photo, so of course it's not a photograph, but it's kind of his own 17th century version of the selfie, where he shows himself in this daily life at the age of 23 years old in his studio working. Got his easel and everything all set up and ready to go. This is a pretty shabby studio. It's in a little town, and he's just trying to make it by. Again, not very wealthy, just kind of puttering through life and making things work. But again, he's enjoying it. He's enjoying the process of working and getting better and perfecting his skills and taking on students of his own. In 1631, Rembrandt decides to move to Amsterdam, and he opens up a studio there. It didn't take him too long, and he meets up with the art dealer's cousin, and he soon gets married. The marriage also helped him boost his artistic career through contacts and high society sort of clients. He did get a lot of portrait work, but he refused to idealize his clients. If you had a wart on your nose, he was going to put it there. He didn't polish you up or make you look any better. And there were some people that didn't really like that. They wanted to look as kind of cleaned up and kind of photoshopped a little bit. But he didn't do that. He wanted to show you exactly the way you were. And there were other clients, again, that respected that. And so those were the ones that primarily took him on as a commissioned artist. During this time, he creates one of my favorite self-portraits. He did many, many, many self-portraits over his career. During this time, he creates one of my favorite self-portraits. This is from 1659, self-portrait from 1659, and it's got this really nice dark ochre feel to it. Very amazing work. And this darkening around it is called chiaroscuro. And chiaroscuro is this intensity of light and shadow that adds drama into the picture, which is kind of a calling card of the Baroque artists. A lot of them are following an artist by the name of Michelangelo Caravaggio, who was kind of the master of this. Over the next 6 years, his wife would have 4 children, and this really put a toll on her because only one of those children lived into childhood, and the rest of them all passed away, which wasn't terribly uncommon. There weren't a lot of vaccines, there weren't a lot of medical advances and things like that that we currently have, and things like that, and so there were lots of risks that went along with childhood back in the 17th century. A year after his youngest son was born, Titus, his wife ended up dying at the age of 30, and he soon took on a couple of other relationships, primarily one that was kind of a little bit, I don't know, kind of looked down upon, I suppose. She was a maid and kind of the help for Rembrandt, and a lot of people look down on the fact that he was involved with her, and there was also some stuff in there where they couldn't get married because his wife, who had passed away, had a dowry, and if he was remarried, that money would go away, and he didn't want to lose the money, so he didn't get remarried. And again, there were a lot of people around that really looked down on that, especially since a lot of this was due to him not wanting to lose money because he went from the bottom, went to the top. I mean, just skyrocketed, made a lot of money, spent a lot of money foolishly, and basically squanders it all away on petty knickknacks and things like that. Buys a big house that he can't afford. His wife was really upset about it, and but there wasn't a whole lot she could do. Um, and again, it was just a case of overspending, and he didn't want to lose his money. In 1656, he ended up basically spending everything that he had and declared bankruptcy. Everything that he owned was sold for a fraction of its value at an auction, and his son was basically put in charge by the court of all of his father's finances. And between his son, his housekeeper, and his half sister, they kind of took care of him financially because the bankruptcy court basically said, you know, you can't take care of yourself, so we need to have these other family members take care of you. Filing bankruptcy ended up helping him out with his art productivity. Laws prevented him from managing his own money, as I just stated, and so it ended up being a situation where all of the business stuff was out of his hands, and people around him were taking care of all of those financial dealings, and so he just focused on making the work, and that's what he did. As Rembrandt gets a little bit older, he starts to develop what is known as his more psychological style. One of the artworks that really illustrates this is The Return of the Prodigal Son, which is based on a parable of a wealthy man. Most of us have probably heard this story. There's a wealthy man who has two sons. The younger son decides that he wants all of his money and runs off. The other son says, you know what, I'll just wait. And the son goes off, spends his money foolishly, and ends up basically coming home and saying, hey, he's got nothing, one shoe on his foot and things like that, in rags. And instead of casting his son out, the father brings him back into the fold and says, let's have a feast. My son has returned home. And it's kind of an interesting parable. And that's what he is illustrated again with this more psychological style from this painting that was done in 1668, 1669, somewhere in there. And the reason this parable is kind of interesting is the fact that I think that's the way he maybe saw himself at the end of his life, kind of in the shoes, so to speak, of the son. He didn't have a whole lot. He went from, low middle class, didn't make a whole lot of money at the beginning, made huge successes, had anything that he wanted, had access to all of the estate and income and all that you could imagine, and basically lost everything. He ends up dying penniless, broke. There's really nothing to show for what he had. He had some art supplies, some worthless trinkets in his pockets, and little to anything else to his name when he passed away. And that was in October 4th of 1669. Again, kind of a sad ending to a great artist, but on his birthday today, I hope to remember him and pass on a little bit of his history and his life, and celebrate the things that he gave to us and in our world, and he didn't maybe live the most responsibly, but the gifts that he has left for the world are, they're without value. So there's that for the day. Thanks for visiting me on this edition of Art 101. Hopefully I'll see you around soon, and we'll make some more of these videos real quick. Thanks a lot for watching.